Hi, friends. Thanks for joining us. Banjo Bowl weekend. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button. We've had incredible growth, a great number of views and listens. So thank you all so much from Ray and Benny. Benny, where can they find us on social media?
Yeah, you can find us, Ray and Benny Sports. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Check us out also on Reddit and Discord. And don't forget to leave us a rating on your favorite podcast provider.
So let's get right into the Banjo Bowl. What is one word that you'd use to describe this year's Banjo Bowl? You can go first.
Okay, I'm gonna go with beauty, but let me explain that. Not in the fact that the Bombers played a awesome game, dominant game, or anything like that. There was obviously some hiccups throughout this game, but in terms of getting the W, that's where I'm calling it a beauty. They swept the season, or not the season series. They swept the back-to-back with Saskatchewan. And always Labor Day is a big game. Banjo Bowl's a follow-up. So two tight games, but the Bombers found a way to get the W and now own a tiebreaker as well against Saskatchewan. So
I'm going to say huge. In the same vein, the Bombers take the season series. Now that's BC, Calgary, and Saskatchewan. Edmonton coming up with the back-to-back will be huge. But things are really close in the West.
Yeah.
And winning these season series it will be huge come at the end of the season. So not necessarily, because there's so many factors in playoff placement. I was reading the list yesterday. It's crazy that season series isn't even till whatever. But any which way, it's just great that they won these season series and that they're rolling at 5 in a row. That's huge.
It's funny because usually when they're going into a bye week like they are now, they kind of come out and lay an egg. And I know this is a big game, so it's kind of hard to just lay an egg in that. But it's good to see that they still played up to their potential in this game and wherever to take that W away from Saskatchewan. Again, it was quite the battle, and that crowd was loud yesterday in that game.
Yeah,
and, it was just fun to watch. But it was good effort, and hopefully they can keep it going.
Banjo Bowl's a crazy environment.
Yes.
Crazy. Also huge is Mike O'Shea getting win number 103 as a head coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, just passing Bud Grant. That's impressive. Now, we know that he does not like being mentioned in the same breath as Bud Grant, but as fans, and it's true, statistically wise, championship wise, that we have to give him props. Like he honors the past. He has to just, you're a great of now. And lots of people talking about statue building and statue whatever. So shout out huge for Michael Shea.
It's funny whenever someone brings it up to him, he's like, I'm not nowhere in the same breath as Bud Grant. He did this. He went down south. He won. What did he win? I can't. Forgetting it at the top of my head. I can't even think of it. There was something that he had won. I can't remember as a player or as a coach. Now I know it wasn't the Super Bowl or anything like that, but it's just not popping in there. But it's funny because O'Shea just doesn't want to take credit, but he's got to know that he is a big factor in this Bomber team, the way they've been winning over the last few years, and now in Bomber history, that he's going to be one of the greats, when it's all said and done for the Bombers.
Yeah, he built a culture out of nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say nothing. Dave Ritchie did do a good bit of change, and it did, fall through with Doug Barry and such going down, and Paul Police getting his chance as head coach. So there's a long line of coaches that didn't quite work out, but O'Shea kind of had to build things from bottom up. And he did a great job with Kyle Walters and with Wade Miller, the Canadian Mafia. Tip of the mug, player of the game. Man, it's so hard for me to give this one. I know there's a glaring player on defense that deserves this, but I'm going to go Sergio Castillo in a close game like this in that kind of environment. 46, 26, 35, 39, 4 for 4, 12 points on field goals, 14 points total. The Bombers won by how much? 3?
5.
Thank you.
26-21, right?
Thank you. Yes. So that's the difference right there. He kept them in the game at least. Yes, the Bombers scored touchdowns, which is great. But Sergio Castillo, I'll give it to him, especially after the beginning of the season, how he started with Chipgate. That sucked. And now he's clutch long distance, like we mentioned for the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to give it to Castillo.
Yeah, Chipgate in the Toronto game basically were his only two bad moments or games really this season, right? So Yeah, and like you say, if he misses one of those net at the end, Saskatchewan's only got to kick a field goal, right, for the win. So they wouldn't be as hurried and all that and looking to throw the ball and everything. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go the other side and give it to the guy who ended the game for the Bombers and get them the W. Tre Ford, 2 interceptions. Also a big special teams tackle right before that second interception on Alford to keep Saskatchewan deep in their own end. Guys are now at 6 interceptions this year, tied for the league lead. So, a great guy to come in and take over. We were missing Demario Houston's interceptions, right? But now Ford's getting the interception. Plus, he's way better at coverage than Houston was doing last year. So it's fun
Yeah.
to see, and hopefully, we'll be seeing him for a long time into the future.
We never really got to miss Demaro Houston's interceptions because Tyrell Taylor just coming on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ooh, and his pick put the Bombers in scoring position on the opposition's 40-yard line. Like, come on, man. This dude's balling. It's crazy.
It's funny you mentioned with the field goals, though. We still got to turn more of those into touchdowns. I love Castillo,
Of
and that guy's going
course.
to hit these, but they need to start finishing those because they, like even the start of the game with the blocked punt by Willie Jefferson, right? You
Yeah.
ended up only with a field goal there. It's like, come on, we're short field. You got to figure out ways to get those into touchdowns.
Also, credit to Saskatchewan's defense. They
Yes.
battled hard.
Oh yeah.
Oof. That's a good defense. We know Corey Mesa was going to be a good defense coming in. It was not going to be a 50, what was it? 55-6 last year,
Yeah.
51-6. That was not going to happen this year. But so props to them. That's a solid team there.
Yeah, tough to run for the Bombers on this one. I don't even think Brady
Yeah,
got 100 yards combined in both games.
crazy.
So, yeah.
So yes, it was nasty rivalry game. And of course, there was that hit on Chris Streveler by your boy Miles Brown. Was it a dirty hit? I'm gonna say no. If anything, maybe careless, but Randolph had a good, that could have easily been a holding call. The way that guy went down with Randolph, he got a good push on the line. So there was momentum there. He tried to make the play. He's an aggressive player. And it's not like he hit the ground and then was crawling and then hit him low. He was trying to grab him and take him down. And I get it. And it does not help for last week and the history previously. But for this one, I'm going to say no. It's not a dirty hit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. And I wish rewatched the highlights and trying to find different angles of this play, but they always show the same one. I wouldn't mind seeing one from the other side. Probably doesn't exist because that's the CFL and their, cameras everywhere or nowhere kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think it was dirty. I think that he just followed through, went through with this play, and like you say, he got taken down. He just stretched out, and of course, most guys are going to stretch out like that to try and get the quarterback. It ended up being unfortunate where it hit Streveler, and hopefully Streveler ends up being okay, and doesn't miss too much time. But guys have come out and said, even Brady Oliveira and other guys have said it wasn't dirty, and they were right there. And even Doug Brown watched it. He's like, no, he probably would have got flagged the same way because he said himself he probably would have done the same thing, right? So
Absolutely.
yes, like you say, unfortunate again that it's the same guy always involved in these situations. But yeah, I don't think this one was dirty.
If Chris Streveler is out, what should the Bombers do about the QB2 or short yardage or slash QB2 short yardage?
Yeah, I mean, short yardage wise, Terry Wilson came in and he converted 3 of them, and a couple of them were in crunch time late in the game when Saskatchewan
Yeah.
really needed a stop. So that's huge to me. So I feel like he can handle that. I don't know what he can do though if he had to come in and play quarterback for the Bombers if something happened to Claro. So I'd like to see them if Streveler's out. You got to probably find someone, even Jake Dogala, if he's still out there somewhere. I couldn't think of any other guys who they could possibly bring in at this time that
Yeah.
knows the CFL game, right? The guys they had in training camp were still pretty raw in terms of CFL, so I don't know if they'd be good to bring back. So they may
Yeah,
have to
I
look for
agree with
something.
you. I agree with you. They definitely need a veteran present just in case Caleros has been taken out of a game so far this year. And hopefully, knock on wood, whatever, it doesn't happen again. But I think they should look for a veteran presence. Maybe I like Mason Fine better than Jay
Yeah.
Dolegala. He's had some good throw. He's not good throws. He's had he played in 14 games, I think, with Saskatchewan. He's bid with live bullets. He can also do short yardage. He's a very athletic quarterback. And I wouldn't mind seeing, or maybe what's his name from Montreal? I think he did play for Saskatchewan too. Antonio Pipkin. He's
Yeah.
got to be out there somewhere. He's just
What,
released this year, right? Wasn't he?
what was the Edmonton guy last year? Why can't I think of his name?
Cornelius.
There you go. He was a good short yardage guy, right?
He was huge. He's a big QB too.
I don't know if I'd want him playing quarterback though. But
That's a thing. We need someone who has at least had some good live bullet play. Not that Fine was great, not that Pipkin was great, but there's a bit of confidence in there. Pipkin actually looked pretty good at one time in Montreal when he's a backup.
yeah, dude looked good every odd game that he came in, and then it's like when he had a chance to take over the starter position, it was like, yeah, you're not that good.
Yeah, Arbuckle like.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Actually, let's go back a little on the play with Saskatchewan. And yes, it's a heated rivalry, and there is a little claim somewhere in the Xverse, Twitterverse, whatever it's called now, that Eric Lofton may have been spit in the face by number 95 Baldonado. Is this a coaching thing? Is this a player thing? With these guys and questionable things going on?
Well, the Eric Lofton thing, he went to social media and said he got spit in the face
I wasn't going to say that for sure, but
or spitting
you
on him.
did. You
Yeah,
did.
so it's coming straight from the horse's mouth, I guess, per se. But yeah, I don't know if it's a coaching thing or maybe a combination of everything. Jeremy O'Day is the only constant from last year, last few years to this year, right? And we saw this team,
Yeah.
Saskatchewan, last year with Dickinson and the years before, kind of play on that line and sometimes cross it and see what could happen, right? So maybe
Mhm.
it's coming from higher up here, but it's after a while, like there was other plays where Jameer Thurman pushed Oliveira, from behind after the play. So that
Yeah.
was another penalty. What Balandano, like, or Donato, sorry,
Baldonado.
uh, also took Oliveira down around the neck, and I ended up getting another penalty on there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was happening more than just this hit by Brown on Streveler. So yeah, I think it's a combination. If it's either coming from the top and the coachings are like, okay, it's coming from the top, I got to kind of follow it. But yeah, someone is saying, hey, do this. Let's see what happens.
I'm going to put it totally on the players here. Because if I look at the season, and I may be wrong, and correct me if I am, but Saskatchewan hasn't been dirty against other teams.
Well, they had the Ottawa game, I guess.
Uh, But that guy
Was
also
Drew
was
Brown in
blocked, and there
that?
was a roll, maybe an excessive roll. But
Yeah.
I don't think they're dirty on a week per week basis. I think this is directly a result of the rivalry, seeing the same faces, and it being a very competitive West Division this year. It's closer than ever that we've seen this West Division 7-6 in first place to what fourth place is four and whatever 500
Five,
plus a tie.
5 and 6. Yeah.
So it's tight, and I think it's really on the players. Like the coaches can only hold their hands so much. I'm sure Mace has said, "Hey, keep your cool in this rivalry game. It's going to get heated." I'm sure, but he can't go on the field and hold these guys' hands all the time. These are grown men, and they lost their cool against a team that they're playing fiercely against, and they know that this is one of the biggest rivalries in the CFL, if not the biggest. So I think with that heatedness, 2 weeks in a row, these crazy crowds. I'm not even going to put on the coaches. The players got to keep their cool no matter what, but coaches can only do so much.
Yeah, but then you could flip it around and go. I know people will bring up the Big Hill hit earlier this season, but in these last two games, did any Bomber player kind of cross that line and make a hit that's kind of like, what the heck are you guys doing out there at all?
Well,
So
it was great to see in the papers that can't remember who said it. It might have been Illy, or it might have been the center. My goodness,
Kolinkowski?
Kolinkowski. Thank you very much. Who said that if it wasn't for Pat Neufeld, it might have gotten heated. So
Yeah.
you have that veteran leadership on the field that got in there, said, "Hey, take a breath. Let's think about the next play." So that's the advantage, I guess, of the Bombers and not having maybe Jamarcus Hardrick out there.
Maybe, yeah. Because
Not having the
Vanterpool ended up getting a penalty, right?
yeah on the
On that
Streveler
after the
thing.
Streveler hit, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a big thing too. Like, yes, the coach has to be on their ass, but you also have veteran leadership that has to be out there on the field being active. And maybe Saskatchewan doesn't quite have that yet as a cohesive unit.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up because that is huge, having that veteran leadership. And then yeah, because we've kind of talked about Saskatchewan the last few years, right? Where they
Mhm.
got to a certain point, they were winning their first few games quite a bit. And then as the season went on, they just took a tailspin and came right down, and there was really no one there to kind of stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be a big possibility and all this stuff.
Who knows? Who knows Saskatchewan? Ugh, they haven't won a game in 2 months.
They got a
They
tie.
started off 4-0. Did you remember? I barely remember that.
Yeah. And then the funny thing is, the last team they beat was actually the Bombers. That's
Oh
how
yeah,
long ago that game, that their last W came. It was against
that's
the
a shame.
Bombers there. Yeah.
That's a shame.
If Bombers
Yeah,
would have won that one, they would have been winless in what, 8, 9?
There's a lot of chirping going on when they were
Oh,
4-0. Ooh,
yeah.
a lot of chirping, bro.
There's a lot of chirping. There's still a lot of chirping going on around here, but yeah.
After Labor Day, they haven't won anything in the past couple years.
No, no, it's crazy. It's wild that the same thing is happening again.
Are they own 14 like after Labor Day or something like that in the past 2 years?
Yeah.
Now this with the two. Oh.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, so they won on Labor Day last year, and then you would have came out of that with what, 6 or 7 games left, right?
Seven. Yeah, they definitely
Or
lost seven in
seven?
a row to
Yeah,
finish
so
the
you
season
lost 7 in a
last
row
year.
there, yeah.
Ugh. Just don't talk. Just wait.
But like you say, it's a tight West division, right? And
Yeah,
you win a couple games, and all of a sudden you're right back into it, or right in the first place kind of thing. It depends what all that stuff happens, right? And what happens in the other games.
absolutely.
So
They'd be
it'll
laughing at
be
us next week.
yeah, exactly. And we could be like, but it'll
Yeah.
be an interesting last couple months.
What a great rivalry. And what a great season.
Yeah, it turned around because Bombers 0-4. We were all doom and gloom kind of thing, and everything's at least it's like you said, it's turned around and it's gotten better, and it's
Yep.
not pretty. It's not always pretty. I mean, these wins are close, right? Again, Bombers had a chance to finish that game, yeah, yesterday, and not give Saskatchewan the ball back, and then he do a play action on 2nd and 5 instead of just pounding it down the gullet and hoping Oliver gets 3 or 4.
Yep.
So it's like, what are you doing? It's like, man, don't give them the ball back. The blood pressure goes back up again. We saw last week they came back and they got the touchdown, right? They just get the 2-pointer or and then missed a field goal there. So yeah, it'd been nice to just finish it off that way. But a win's a win.
So with Edmonton and BC and Winnipeg all looking pretty strong, having great performances, how do you see the West Division shaking out now? Ugh. I
Yeah.
think as a Bomber fan that they're going to have to go on the road on the playoffs. They'll have to go to Commonwealth and then they'll probably have to go to Vancouver because I think it's going to be Vancouver or BC Lions, Edmonton, and Winnipeg. Like BC has the Argos, Tycant, Staps, and Riders and Owls, and they're looking really good right now. After that last game, how they beat the Owls, William Standback, whew, Nathan Rourke looking pretty good now that he has it. And then the Elks have also a very favorable schedule. Like I mentioned earlier on in the season, I think the Elks will take one of these from the Bombers. And then they have the Roughriders, the Stamps, and the Argos to finish. The Bombers have the tougher road here. So that's how I think the West will shake out. BC 1, Edmonton 2, Winnipeg 3.
Yeah, even with BC, 4 of those 5 games are at home as well. The only the Saskatchewan ones on the road. So yeah, I think they're gonna end up probably finishing first just with that nicer schedule coming up. Besides the Owls, again at in the last game of the season, and depending on that game, maybe the Owls may have the East wrapped up at that point,
Well, for
right?
sure.
So that could be meaningless for them, which could be easier for BC. So it'll be a good one, but I'm thinking BC, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and maybe Saskatchewan could maybe fight for the crossover, but I don't think they're getting in the West. But these 2 games are huge for Edmonton, obviously against Winnipeg. Yeah,
Yeah.
if they take one, hey, they'll be probably pretty happy. If they can somehow take 2 from the Bombers,
Oh,
that'll get interesting and make it wild. And like you say, it's close, right? The Bombers haven't clinched anything yet. They could easily still miss the playoffs,
yeah.
even after this run of winning a bunch of games now, right? They go to Hamilton, where they always lay an egg, or they have for the last couple of seasons,
I
besides the
hate
Grey
going to
Cup,
Hamilton.
but
Hey.
but yeah, so that's always a tough game. Again, them with the Owls too. They got the Alouettes at last game of the season. Maybe the Owls are resting guys, but maybe the Owls got something to play for too. So yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be tough. It'll be an interesting game, but I do see those 3 teams making the playoffs from the West.
Definitely cheering for the Alouettes in the next 2-3 weeks. Because if they can clinch a
Yes.
playoff spot, it'd be nice to have them in as their last game, the Bombers' last game.
How bad is Calgary though right now? Good God.
They're horrible.
They switched quarterbacks there and just did not get any better. And I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. They got 6 games left still, but
Like Jake Meyer did have to sit, but I don't think on this back to back you change on there's just too much emotion.
yeah,
Edmonton is rolling too much now. I think they should have just went with the consistency of Jake Meyer. And if you lose, then you make your change.
yeah, I
But in this
agree on
back to
that.
back where he knows this team better than this young guy who looked horrible.
Yeah, it's a tough spot, like you say, to throw this guy into, though, right? The back to
Well,
back
come
after
on.
Labor Day, man. Those games are always tough on the road. And Edmonton had a nice crowd yesterday as well. So
That's a coaching decision. That's on your boy, Dave Dickinson.
That's what I told Dave. Yeah, that's what I told you. He's gone, man. That's what I told you. He's gone after this year. I think that was my prediction at the beginning of the year. So
Dave Dickinson. Well, Chris Ford gone. Chris Ford? Yeah.
Chris Ford,
What's his name again from
Chris
Edmonton?
Jones.
Jones. Oh, I got Ford because I'm looking at here.
I
Let's
was
move
like,
on to
well,
Edmonton. Tre Ford.
yeah.
There he's being called, and he's called into action with it. I think his abdominal muscle injury to 3 last names. What are your thoughts on Tre Ford getting the nod as a starter against the Bombers?
It's interesting for Jarius Jackson to actually come out and say that now, when you got a bye week coming up and you got a couple of weeks. I'm surprised almost he didn't keep it under his hat for a bit to kind of get the Bombers kind of guessing or second guessing who's going to play and who they have to get prepared for, kind of thing. But maybe in the end he flips it and actually McLeod Bethel Thompson starts and he fooled the Bombers, and thinking Tre Ford was going to go, but
Oof.
yeah, McLeod, he's been playing well. So I'm kind of surprised by the move. And I know Tre Ford was playing well before he got hurt. And now I guess he is fully healthy going into the bye. So it's interesting. Hopefully it doesn't work out because they're playing the Bombers, but hopefully Jarius Jackson didn't screw this one up.
Yeah, I think like unless he has closed practices, like the media will see him and Tre Ford taking first team reps
Yeah.
all week. Like it's hard to hide that, so you might as well call it the way it is. If a guy can't throw with an abdominal injury, then Tre Ford's the man. He's back in there. I kind of think this puts the Bombers at a disadvantage. The Bombers aren't very good against the run. They've been definitely stingy against the run in this 5 yard or 5 game winning streak. One 100-yard rusher in the past 5 games, and then no other rusher has broken 50 yards against the Bombers since then. So maybe that's a good sign there. But I think with a three-headed monster with Tre Ford, Javon Leake, and Kevin Brown, that's not good for the Bombers. I'd rather see McLeod Bethel Thompson there stuck in the pocket. So that really changes the strategy for the Bombers. You got to keep Tre Ford inside of the pocket. You got to confuse this guy with blitzes and fake blitzes and not allow him to get comfortable and not allow him to throw on the run. Because when he gets his legs going, he is dangerous.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm kind of scared of this guy, especially after he looked good against the Bombers when he came in that one time last year.
Yeah.
Last
But
season? Yes, last season.
it's interesting you say that, but the Bombers could not get to Trevor Harris this weekend, right? So Trevor Harris put up some good yards in both those games and kind of picked that defense apart after
Yeah.
they've been shutting down a lot of quarterbacks. So McLeod Bethel Thompson may be a good choice here as well, because that pass rush right now is not getting through very well for the Bombers. So if he had time in the pocket, that guy's going to pick you apart, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Tre Ford, if they can keep him in the pocket, he may not be able to pick them apart, right? So, but yeah, once he gets out of the pocket, it's a totally different story. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of game plan and how the Bombers prepare for it. Because, like you say, they struggled against the running quarterbacks. They struggled against Ford when they've played against him. So,
Yeah.
hopefully they're ready for it. And Big Hill is obviously still not going to be back probably in 2 weeks. I'll be quite surprised if he is. So, those linebackers are going to need to step up. Anything on Kyrie Wilson?
Well, he's not playing this year.
Oh, is he out completely?
He's a seasoner. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I kept
He's
waiting for
done.
him to come back.
I was waiting too, but he done.
Dang.
He done. But yeah, McLeod Bethel Thompson, he's all right. But I don't know why I'm so scared of Tre Ford.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
I guess it
dynamic. He
really commits
moves.
him to the ground game, which the Bombers aren't very good at. I'm not too concerned with the Bombers giving up passing yards. Like, even if we throw back to Richie Hall when they're successful, they're bend but don't break.
That's true.
They've been bend but don't break for a long time. So hopefully that defense is back because bend but don't break, but they keep the points down and keep the Bombers in the game. And also they're getting turnovers now, which we were talking about earlier in the year. The lack of turnovers, which goes back to you saying DeMario Houston, that was true early in the year. We're like, man, there is no turnovers going on. But now that they stepped it up, yeah. So man, I don't like Tre Ford. I like Tre Ford as a Canadian and a quarterback, not against the Bombers. Like they gotta really strategize against the guy. You know, if they can really optimize the 3-man blitz and drop the secondary and let him rely on his arm, I think that's what they have to do.
Yeah, they're gonna have to figure out how to get some pressure though, because these last couple games they weren't getting a lot of it. And I know we both hate the 6-man plus blitzes, so I don't want to see those. But the 3-man sometimes I don't know if they're just more trying to confuse Harris with having multiple guys back there, but he was picking them apart, and he had some big plays downfield.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can get now the interceptions are happening, but the sacks aren't happening. So hopefully one day they can bring both of those together, and start to dominate again their D the way they were doing it, a few games ago, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think the secondary is a lot more confident now that they can
Oh yeah,
go back to throwing a couple more um, 6-man blitzes. And it's not always about having an overload blitz either. It's about like what we are talking about a couple weeks ago about showing blitz and then not showing it. So
yeah,
Tre Ford and also the center and the guards think twice about who they're blocking. He thinks twice about who he's throwing to. He can't get into a rhythm, and that's a thing.
yep,
He can't get
for
into a
sure.
rhythm. He can't use his legs. I think the Bombers will be okay. See, now I'm not worried about Tre Ford. We got to talk about it. I just have to talk it out.
You just talk it out, let it
Yeah,
all out,
man.
let
I
it
just
all
have to
out.
talk it out. Benny, you have anything to say to our friends?
You know what? Just thanks a lot for listening. Don't forget, subscribe, follow, and have a good bye week, Bomber fans.
Yeah, enjoy the bye week. Thanks again so much for your support. We're pretty elated here about how many views have been popping up and all the comments and all that stuff. So, thank you very much. Enjoy the bye week, and we'll be back soon. And in the words of Ed Whalen, yes, him, because I'm in Calgary Stampede. I'm gonna go see Raw tomorrow. Isn't that
Oh,
crazy?
nice. Yeah, right on.
Last time I saw Raw was with you in Winnipeg when Chris Jericho was playing musical chairs with Ric Flair.
Yeah. Stacy too.
Oh, you remember Stacy, eh?
Yeah,
Oops.
yeah.
In the meantime, in between time, that's it. Another edition of Ray and Benny Talk Sports. Yeah, I remember Stacy too, man.
Better stop recording here.
Hey, friends and neighbors, don't forget to check us out online on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Ray Benny Sports. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell us what you think.